Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brain. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization supporting people navigating herpes stigma. We educate health professionals, mental health professionals, public health people, as well as educators on what it is to support somebody who's navigating herpes stigma. And part of that is also teaching people how to communicate about their sexual health status and relationship intentions and expectations, and negotiating just the safety protocols and practices around their sexual health. As people might know, if you've been listening to the podcast, at least over the last couple of weeks, I'm coming out of a bout of what I have identified as, oh, I hate to use the word, being depressed. I don't want to identify with the label. Let's talk about the action. And what that has been was a feeling of stuckness, really. And I will be able to speak more about this now that I can actually allow myself to name it. Because when I was in it, I didn't want to speak about something that I didn't know what it was or put anybody through the process of me having to um, try and formulate what was actually happening with me. And like I said, I'll go into more detail about that, but I am through it. I'm on the other side of it. And that recovery process, I think, is really what brought it to the surface for me, because I had to do a lot of moving around, just with the events that were happening during that time. And when I had to sit still, that was where the real hard work began, because that stillness, it has a gravitational pull into stagnancy. And that's where I was. And I'm very fortunate to have had people around me who were there, who were able to remind me who I was, very similar in the same way that I attempt to hold the space for people living with herpes who have an identity loss as a result of their diagnosis, and encourage y'all to remind yourselves who you were through the people who know you best. All right. So, with that being said, this is my first podcast recording. Well, second, I had the one where I was like, "Hey, I'm out of it. I'm here." And so this is the first interview I've done since being out of that. So bear with me, and I'm gonna tell you as well as my guest, like I'm as present as can be, as I have been for a long time. But this feels like a new version of me that is showing up here. Maybe not new, but just one that's kind of breaking out of what I would say has been like a calcified shell over my spirit that I am or have, however language makes the most sense. So yeah, this is going to be an experience for both of us, because it's also your first podcast. So
Yes.
I'll let you introduce yourself, how you want to be introduced, or how you want people to perceive you. If you can give them just like an image of who you are, not necessarily physical appearance, but just who's this person that we have here today talking about their experience, and then just speak to how you and I connected, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I go by Joy. I'm in my late 30s. I have two daughters. I've had a bit of a life. I've had dealt with mental illness, mental health issues for a long time. Both of my daughters live with their dad, so that's really hard. One lives in the East Coast, one lives on the West Coast. So I'm always traveling back and forth, trying to figure out where I spend most of my time. How I found out about connected with you was one night I was just, I've had diagnosis of HSV2 for about a year now, but I was showing symptoms for 2 years. And I struggle with, having this because nobody that I know at least has disclosed that they have this. So it was a really hard night one night. And I'm married, but it's always on the rocks. I leave to one coast, I come back. And I just always think a future trip. And I'm like, well, what's gonna happen if I get a divorce, and who's going to accept me with this condition? So I was just Googling, support, who can help me, looking for a community of people that have this. And that's how I came across you.
All right, thank you. When you speak about the history of mental illness, can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah. So in 2014, I had a manic episode where I thought that I was chosen and pregnant with Jesus, and the rapture happened, and I was committed to a hospital. And then I was out and I did therapy, medication management. And then in 2020, the same story happened again. And then the recent one was in 2023. But this time I lost my whole life. I lost my house, I lost my car, I lost my kids, I lost everything. And that's when I found out I had, that's when I started showing symptoms of HSV too.
All right. So I was looking at your form and I was looking like, damn, did I miss that? Can you that's big, and I want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah,
So
sure.
tell me about this. You thought you were pregnant with Jesus?
Yeah, I guess because I grew up in a really strong Christian background. I'm still, that's big part of my spirituality. But just one day I woke up in the middle of the night and started praying and shouting. And this was back in 2014 or 13 when people really didn't know much about, bipolar and things of that nature. So nobody
Mhm.
knew what was going on with me. They thought I had taken drugs, but I hadn't. And, my that was my first husband. I've been married 3 times. That was my first ex-husband, and he didn't know what to do, so he was in the military, and he brought the chaplain over, and I thought the chaplain was the Antichrist, and I ran from him, and then, they committed me to the hospital, and I stayed about 3 weeks. They let me go, and then the same thing happened again, so then I went back, and I was able to stabilize a month later.
All right. So my grandmother, who passed away when I was 12, 13, um, she too was, I believe she was bipolar only.
Mm, mhm,
Um, and I caught glimpses of her like manic episodes. She would speak about things like demons. I never really heard her talk about God, but I remember stories of my dad because she put him into Catholic school, and she I don't remember enough to be able to speak to it in a way to relate, but I'm curious about the connection between the mental health breakdown and religion, right? Like you said, you woke up and you just like started praying, and that was like the beginning of the manic episode for you. Were
mhm.
there any things leading up to that? Can you pinpoint any event where this may have happened before? Like, let's talk a little bit about this bipolar thing.
Um, I don't know. What I realized with so I had 3 episodes. And the first one I was really heavy into smoking weed. And the second time too, but this last time I was completely off weed, not doing any of that. But the first time, I don't know. I just, I was reading the Bible and I thought that I was eating an apple and I thought that that was making me Eve, the forbidden fruit. And I was doing some things against my marriage that I shouldn't have been doing. So it's so weird that you say this about religion and mental health because people who have seen me in these episodes say that it's like I'm really close to God, but at the same time I'm walking with Satan. And I also feel like it's a spiritual attack because it's weird. Like I'll have like I could help people and nobody know I'm manic, but at the same time, like I do horrible things that I would never imagine to do if I wasn't in that state.
Let me ask you where you are now. Like, how do you feel in terms of your spirit, mental health, your identity? Like, how are you feeling in this moment?
In this moment, I feel pretty stable. I do sometimes have racing thoughts and I'll just take a Benadryl and a melatonin because sleep's important. If I don't sleep, then I get a manic episode. As far as
Mhm.
spirituality, I struggle with it. I struggle with guilt just because of a lot of the mistakes I made in the past.
All right. Uh, so you reached out to me on May 28th, and here
Mhm.
we are now today, July. Wow, July 25th, and we were finally able to get this going. What was that process for you between reaching out, filling out the intake form to be a podcast guest, and now? Like, how has your life been during that time? Because I'll tell you this, you were extremely patient with me
Mhm.
during, to me, like I guess like my own mental health crisis that I was facing, having lost my home, still processing a breakup, having lost one of my, well, now two of my college teammates, one of which was my roommate, having moved and being displaced. Like there was a lot that was happening for me that I can pinpoint. This combination of events just fucking broke me. And getting back together, I think probably had more of an impact on what my struggles were because it was in my face and I had to deal with it. There was no avoiding it.
Mm.
And I want to know, like, is your kindness, your patience with me sort of like what you would say other people would say about you when you were having these experiences with your mental health?
I just I try to be empathetic. I remember where everybody's been at because I've had, like I said, I've had a life. So I remember you said that you're moving, so I know what that's like because I moved all over the country the last 2 years. So people would say that, I don't know actually. Everybody's always just worried about if I'm okay. I never hear feedback of how I am doing. I just hear, are you taking your meds? Are you okay? But since we've been talking, trying to do this podcast, I also have HPV. I forget the strands that I have, but they're the cancerous ones. So in June I had a hysterectomy, and yesterday I had my post-op for my it was 8 weeks. And I found out that not only do I have to get screened vaginally twice a year, I have to get screened for throat cancer, and I have to get throat when that time comes to get a colonoscopy, I have to get screened for anal cancer. So I'm dealing with that too.
Did they say why?
They said because the strand of HPV I have, those three cancers come with it.
Okay. Now you have your herpes diagnosis. I'm curious, like between well, now there's like a trifecta because we've got mental health here, we've got herpes, which is an STI, and then we've got HPV, which is an STI virus, but also linked to cancer. Of
Right.
these, are there any that are most concerning to you?
I thought it was the herpes until I went to the doctor yesterday and found out that, I had this hysterectomy. It was cancer, stage one. And I was like, oh, it's gone now. But now finding out that I'm at risk for these other cancers, I don't know which one is the worrisome. The reason why the herpes worries me is because, you know, I, I I didn't know, and I still am trying to figure out where I got it from. So I didn't have a choice in getting any of these actually, right? But with the herpes, I don't know how to go about telling somebody I have it and then risking themselves to have it because it's painful. It hurts when it happens, when the outbreaks happen. But
Mhm.
with this cancer, it's just like, well, it's three areas of my body that I have to be concerned about now.
Yeah. And then they say like if it's because of it spreads that way, or is it because of
Yeah,
special sexual contact between oral sex, anal sex, vaginal sex?
right, right,
Okay, so
right,
that was the reason. So they asked you what
right,
kind of sex do you have, and then they talked about it.
right, right.
All right. My other question to you is like, you've been married 3 times, you said?
Yeah, three times.
Most people, so it's a lot of people that can't get married once. How you pull that?
No, I hate when people say that 'cause it's like, yeah, people don't get married more than once, but at least they're married to that same person. Or once the first one doesn't work out, they don't try again.
But that speaks to bravery too, though, because we can get our hearts broken, we can get screwed over, and to be willing to put yourself in that same position for the outcome that you're hoping for, like that really takes a brave person.
Yeah,
And you've done it, once. And I don't know if you are comfortable with going into any of the details about
yeah,
these relationships at all. Like
sure.
what caused for the divorces, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the first one, we were young. That was the one that lasted the longest, 8 years. But what ended it was infidelity on both parts. But I could
How
say to
old
this,
how
how old
old
was I
was
when
he? Or you?
when I got
Both of
when I
y'all?
got when I got married? I was 21 and he was 25.
Okay.
And when we ended, I was 20, around 28. But it was infidelity, and also I could say to this day that he's one of my best friends. Like we went to counseling, and we knew that it was,
No.
yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Are you there?
Fine.
Oh,
And or I'm sorry, you were 21, he was 25, right?
yes.
Okay, and then what'd you
Yes.
say after that?
I said that it was infidelity, and just we cheated a lot on both ends, but we went to counseling and we knew that it wasn't going to work out, so we did divorce counseling. And to this day, he's like one of my best friends. Like we're really close.
Oh, well, that's nice that y'all
Yeah.
are able to still be close. Um, the infidelity on both ends, like, was it a one person cheated, the other found out, and then there was retaliation, or was it like, hey, I'm not feeling this? What's that?
It was more, it wasn't an open marriage. It was just like, he would be doing stuff on the side. I remember I had just had our baby, and I found him on websites back when Craigslist was a thing, and I found him on there, and then that hurt me, so I went and I worked out. I, I had a really, fit body. So then I use that, and we're just going back and forth, and then we try to work it out, but somebody was seeing somebody else, or somebody was doing it with somebody else.
Got it. All right, so I just joined from my phone too, so that I
Okay.
can like not lose you again.
Okay.
So I'm a okay. So I am the co-host. I'm the host and I'm the co-host. So if anything goes down again, then what I'll be able to do is just switch over the phone. I've been
Okay.
having some weird issues since yesterday, but okay. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Um, what about the second marriage? So the first one was
Mm.
8 years, and then what happened for the second?
The second one, we are not on good terms. It's a lot. It's a lot with him. Um, I cheated. I have to accept that it comes also. I don't want to blame it on the bipolar, but bipolar people are very hypersexual people, And I cheated a lot. And he found out during a manic episode. I told him everything I did, and that was enough for him, and he divorced me. Are
All
you
right.
there?
You able to hear me?
Yes.
All right. So there's something happening. Oh, I'm so happy that I did that when I did. So now the my computer is disconnected because of the Wi-Fi issues. I am plugging my mic into the phone and we will be back on.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound good.
All right, awesome. So yeah, screw that. We have the worst internet provider
I
here.
know. So do I. So do I.
Are you where you at? Where you located?
New York.
Oh, do you have Optimum?
Yeah.
That's the one. So for whatever reason, Verizon, AT&T, literally everybody else is just not here.
Yeah.
And this is it. This all we got. So I'm on my
Yeah.
phone.
Okay.
We switched over. Hopefully, let me check and make sure that it is still recording. So I have host privileges now. All right, thank you again. So thank you for your patience. So
You're
thank you
welcome.
for your patience.
You're
Now,
welcome.
what you were saying was there was cheating in that relationship as well, in that marriage.
Yeah, like I said, one of the symptoms of bipolar is hypersexuality. So back in my prime, this is not okay. So this marriage happened right
Is that
after.
true?
Yeah, it is. It is true.
Oh my God. Go on.
So this marriage happened shortly after my first divorce. And I found somebody, Prince Charming, but he was away a lot for work, and we got married, and then he went overseas, so I was left alone, and my urges happened, so I cheated. And then he didn't find out until my manic episode in 2020, and I felt like I had to come clean and tell him everything. So I did. And that was too much for him. So he divorced me. And me and him are not on good terms at all.
So, all right, talk to me about what bipolar feels like. If you were to be able to explain to me, like, because I my understanding is that there's manic episodes and then depressive
Right.
episodes, right?
Right.
So you
Right.
got high highs and low lows, right? And can you speak to me about what it feels like for you?
So I struggle with bipolar one, which is mainly mania. I'm always an energetic person. It is hard to wake up in the morning just because I'm on a lot of medication. And but throughout the day, like I'm talking fast, I'm going a million miles. When I'm having a bad day, I'll have racing thoughts. I'll think of songs, I'll think of music, I'll think of the Bible, I'll think of just like everything at one time. But when the low hits, the depression, it's pretty bad. You can't move out of bed, you want to sleep all day. It's just it's the worst. It really is. I rather be stable, but I rather have energy than be depressed because it's hard. You feel disabled.
Okay. So I did Google some of the symptoms of bipolar, and you just tell me how accurate this is, but feeling very
Mhm.
excited, but feeling very irritable or aggressive, having a lot of energy, feeling restless or not needing much sleep, racing thoughts or not being able to concentrate, speaking fast or talking a lot. You may not make sense to other people, and a high sex drive. I like that that's the last high sex drive. So all of these, right? Like, how did you get your diagnosis?
From the manic episode, the
From
first
the
one.
so that was it. Okay. Did someone call someone on you? What was
Yeah,
going
I
on?
had I had a whole care team. I had for my first ex-husband's friends helping me. I had he was in the military, so I had the support team from the military, everybody just trying to get me. And just finally they got me to the hospital and I was committed.
Were you cooperative in that?
No.
Oh, so while you were in it, were you like, nothing's wrong with me?
I just thought everybody was after me and everybody was wrong. And this was, like I said, this was back in 2013, 2014. And this is when there was still straitjackets. And, they would, yeah, I was in the jacket. They put needles in my butt. Like it was a lot. It was very traumatizing. But I could say as far as resources during mental health, like I remember there was groups and art and all these things that you could do. And over the years, my different stays, it seems like the resources are limited because there's not as much activities to do when you're in there.
Oh, oh man. I'm first off surprised that the conversation took this turn, but I'm appreciative of you being willing to speak to this. Uh, because a lot of the conversations that I do have, herpes is a small part of it, but more of it tends to revolve around like this, like who people are outside of their diagnosis. And I don't think that I've ever spoken to someone who has been so open and receptive to speaking about their bipolar.
Mhm.
My grandmother, my aunt, who's my grandmother's who passed daughter, she has bipolar and schizophrenia. And a lot of I guess I don't need to say like who she is, but uh, there was a time where she like when we speak to the hypersexualization or hypersexuality, right? Like she sent me a very inappropriate selfie to my Facebook, and I just like I understand what's happening with her, and I was like, hey, I don't think that's appropriate. And
Right.
I think that I was kind of scared of her like flipping out or losing her shit, but she was very like, you're right, nephew. Sorry about that. So how can people engage with someone who is in a manic episode from your experience? Because you mentioned that it felt like everybody was against you
Yeah.
in the instance of. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm trying
I'm
to.
just no, I'm just thinking 'cause it's very hard. Like I could place myself in other people's shoes and it's hard. Like the other day, like I said, I had a bad day. I had racing thoughts. And my oldest was like, Mom's going manic. And I was like brushing it off, like, haha. But she knew and she went and separated herself from me because like she's been through so much with that. She knows that she can't help. She could just separate herself from that.
Mhm.
I think the best thing to help somebody that's going through that is just to listen on their rant, whatever thing they're tripping on, whatever conspiracy they think, or just, sit with them. And I think the best thing to do though is to call for help, whether it be the hospital, a counselor. Like there's no way somebody without training is going to be able to help somebody. It's be a miracle. It really would.
So what I'm hearing is presence, right? So to be with them through that, sit through the rant and everything,
Mhm.
but then we call for help. And I wonder the help. Like I think we've seen in the news where people are having mental health crises and
Mhm.
the authorities that are called turns into a lethal situation or it
Right.
becomes something that it doesn't have to become. So if we're calling for support, what type of language can we use? Who can we call? What are some resources for us to be able to support somebody with bipolar?
Well, I think it's important first to, if you know that person, if you know that person, to know who their support is. Start small, community wise. Is it their mom? Is it their husband? Is it their best friend? Try to get them to calm them down. And
Mm.
then if that doesn't work, do they have a therapist? Do they have a pastor? Do they have somebody else? And if that's too much, then, we're going to take a ride. We're just going to get you evaluated. And if they're struggling against that, just be like, look, there's serious consequences that can come. It's not that I don't believe what you're saying, but you need some help that I can't help you with. Because this last run in, the one I told you that just ruined my whole life, I was arrested because I was having a manic episode. And instead of calling, I know a lot of cities have crisis intervention teams where they have mental health on hand with the police department and the local authorities. But in the state that I was in, they didn't have anything like that. So they actually pushed me down to the ground, arrested me. I picked up the charge because there was no crisis intervention team. There was no counselor to be there when this happened to me. And clearly I was in a manic state. So,
Now, that's advice for people who know about the bipolar, right?
right.
Now, you mentioned that the hypersexuality, the cheating, the infidelity, with those partners, these were
Mhm.
more likely shorter interactions. What signs
Mhm.
can you speak to that maybe would communicate to someone that you're having casual sex with that you might be struggling with or having a manic episode? Or I guess like, what kind of sex were you having? Was this like, hey, I'm
It was
just
mainly
going
like
to go?
one night stands. Sometimes they were relationships, but they were mainly like one time things. That's all it was.
So what was the process of getting there? Was it just like you go out, meet someone, you get on dating apps? How did you find these people?
Sometimes it was going out, and other times, well, the first time, the first ex-husband was I worked at a hotel. So yeah, that came easy, you
Yeah.
know,
So was it a lot of people or a lot of sex with few people?
a lot, I think. I
A
think a
lot. Which one?
mixture. I think a lot with different people.
So, all right, so boom, you're in the episode, or you just like in it, and in that you just like fuck it, and you just
Yeah.
going in, or
And that
like,
was that yeah, and that was before the diagnosis. So I didn't really know what was happening. And it wasn't a manic episode. It was just, symptoms. I didn't know. But here's the kicker. So they say that bipolar comes from there's different reasons why it can happen, but they also can be from unrelated trauma. And I at the time I had unrelated trauma. So that
unrelated trauma. Say
yes.
more, please.
Oh, I also had PTSD. I had abuse as a kid. So that's, led to the hypersexuality and everything
Sexual
else.
abuse.
Just, uh-huh.
Okay. All right. And how has that been something that you've spoken to someone about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Uh,
during the first episode, I thought everybody was that person that offended me, that abused me. I thought everybody was him, every male was him. So, that was the trauma. But since then I put that behind me. I've taken a lot of therapy for that.
Okay, because I wanted to ask, like, what's the healing process from that? Because I think a lot of people do or are holding on to, you know, a specific person and looking at other people that maybe fit that archetype or that role in
Hmm.
their lives as that person. And the responses shift as we become more comfortable, as we become more adults, more mature, as we get more information, to where we're now responding to our real time present partner as if they're that person that harmed us when we were at whatever age we were. Because my understanding is it's kind of like we screenshot ourselves into that moment and we're living that out, but like real time, we're here. So you go to make love to your person again and they're having a flashback of being touched the way that that person touched them, and then boom, like that's where it's not okay. There's a lash out, blow up. I'm curious about like that and the healing process of that.
Fortunately, as far as that, I haven't experienced that flashbacks, but my two issues with partners is since I was a child when it happened to me, um, I am always paranoid that that's going to happen to my daughter from my partner. So, I'm always looking in the corner. I'm always like, it's just, I don't trust anybody with my kids. I don't.
Uh,
Yeah. So that's brought issues, a lot.
and therapy has been the most helpful modality for
Right,
you.
right. Yes. And then the only other time where like it's not sexual, but it's, triggering would be getting pap smears and internal exams. Like I had like the one I just had yesterday, I had to take a Xanax because there's no way I was gonna relax. Just having it's just so vulnerable and having somebody there that you don't know.
Yeah. I wanna like pause real quick and check in with you. Like, how you feeling with this? We are supposed to be talking about herpes, and like
Oh,
we went
I
way left.
I used to work in mental health and my job was to be a peer, so I'm comfortable disclosing.
Okay, so the reason that I want to speak more to this is that there is people don't recognize a herpes diagnosis as a sexual trauma,
Mhm.
and a diagnosis of any sexual, STI in itself, I believe, is a traumatic experience and event, especially if we don't have the necessary resources to support us in that transition from who we thought we were into now what this diagnosis makes us believe that we are, or makes us believe who and what we've become to this point. So yeah, I want to just express my gratitude for you being able to go here. And I'm like having well, not flashbacks, but like moments of relationships that I've been in or partners that I've been with of, damn, this sounds similar. Not to put a diagnosis or a label onto anyone,
Right.
but a lot of the traits that you're speaking to, and you mentioned not even having had a diagnosis, but in those manic episodes. So type one, right? Type one,
Yeah,
the
bipolar.
bipolar, and
Mhm.
then the high energy, the high hypersexuality. That's where I was going. So, is there a way for partners of people who may be experiencing just that component, the hypersexuality component? How can someone who you picked up at the hotel maybe recognize, oh, this person's like having a mental health crisis, or would they have just not known?
Not have known. Just thought that I was just, into them or, I hate to say it, but I'm gonna say it, just a hoeing around, like they wouldn't.
Oh
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah.
And I guess like the was the kind of sex you were having, was it high risk? Like, was there
Yes.
community?
Yes.
Okay, wow, that's
Yeah.
okay. This is useful for me. And would you say that any of the kind of sex that you were having, were there any healing elements of it, or was it all just like potentially compounding problems, trauma into your life? Like,
Yeah.
was
There was no healing at all. It was just, and that's something that I used to, not so much anymore because like I haven't done those kind of things in a while, in years, but for a long time I felt so much guilt and shame, just because it was ridiculous. It was getting out of control. But those things never led to my herpes. Like it's a miracle. Like I didn't use protection. I never got pregnant, I don't know how, I guess by the grace of God, nothing bad happened to me because nothing came out of those things.
Mhm. Um, and then the last question I want to ask you about this before transitioning into like parenting is the not the quality of the sex necessarily. We talked about like not using condoms. We talked about it being more short term. Oh, what I wanted to ask was it like I'm horny, I'm turned on, or what was it? Why sex? Why was sex the outlet for the manic episodes?
I think it was two things. I think it was, just like I'm horny, I want to get off. And I think also it was validation. Like I might not be there completely in my head, but like I said, I used to be really fit and toned. And I was like, well, maybe I'm not all right here, but my body's good. So let me see what validation I can get from somebody else.
Okay. And was there
That
any
I'm okay. Huh?
intimacy in these interactions?
Not with the one-time ones, because I did have like actual our fair partners with lots of sex, but Mm, no, there was no intimacy with the one nights. No.
So you weren't avoiding intimacy necessarily. You were just kind of, it is what it is.
Right, right.
All right. And was the sex that you would have with your husband or relationships different? Was it more or less frequent? Because if you're hypersexual and you're in the relationship, like, does it express as hypersexuality in the relationship?
Yes, it was still going on frequent with the marriages.
Okay. So it was like, it don't matter who it is, anybody can get it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So let's shift. Do you feel complete in sharing about that portion? Because I do want to transition away from it, and I want to just like check in with you because, like I said, this is heavy. It's heavy for
Yeah.
me. Like I don't get to have these conversations. I'm honestly like I'm shocked that like I'm able to be as present as I am for this because, like I said, this is my first interview back. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
I'm
didn't
good.
expect this. I didn't expect this. So yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so let's talk about parenting. How old are your children? You've got two daughters?
Yes. 17 and 10.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming that these are, because you mentioned they're on different sides of the country. So
Mhm.
you had your 17-year-old with your first or second husband?
Yes. First.
Okay. And other side of the country or closer?
Other side.
Okay. Now, talk to me about the, I guess like the pregnancy. Let's speak first about the pregnancy and then like because you said 2016, was it 2013 or 16
Yeah.
when you had your first?
Thir 13.
All
About
right,
13, 14.
so your second daughter, you had your diagnosis, but the first
Hmm.
17. Let's talk about the pregnancy and what those first early years were like pre getting your diagnosis.
Okay, with the first one, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's when I found that I had HPV.
Okay.
And they say that when you're pregnant, that's supposed to be like the best sex of your life. You're supposed to be doing it. Well, I couldn't do it because I had warts. And I couldn't have a vaginal birth because of that. So I had an emergency C-section. And then I don't know if it was the bipolar or I had postpartum, but when she was born, I was really heavy. And then, caught my first ex-husband talking to girls on Craigslist. And then I went to the gym every night when she was asleep and I got super fit. And that's when, I started partying. I left her at home when the baby was asleep. If he would work during the week, and I would tell him, okay, when do you go to work on Monday? 6. All right, it's Friday. I'll see you Monday. Like I was just going a million miles. And that probably was bipolar that I didn't even know. But after that, we moved to a different coast and I was a present mom and things were good. And then just these episodes have it's put a lot on her. She's been through a lot. She knows a lot. She's very wise because of it.
And I guess the early years, so we talked about like the pregnancy, her being born. What
Mhm.
were some of the things that I guess happened from you, I guess the early years? Like what, I don't have a better way of asking. So what ways did you fuck her up like early on in that
Yeah.
you
Um,
undiagnosed bipolar episodes that you might have had?
I think just the risky behavior because during that first marriage, there was one time where we were actually separated legally, and I took her to go live with me with the man I had just met, you know. So her seeing that, mom has boyfriends, when mom's married, those kind of things. But luckily she doesn't remember, but I know at the time, like it must have been confusing. And then
It's a fear that you had about like a man doing anything with your to your daughter because these are men
mhm,
you know and you just met
right, right,
sexual relationships, so you don't really know them outside of that context.
right, right. And then during the episodes, I would string her along. I know one time I pulled her out of a window because I thought somebody was after us. I did stuff like that. And CPS was involved for these episodes. Yeah.
And where was husband or ex-husband? Were y'all
Yeah,
still?
ex-husband. We were
Oh,
living during the episode we were living together. But he when CPS got involved, they separated us and they put them in a hotel and I had to stay by myself, which wasn't good. Going back to how you could help somebody with the diagnosis, don't leave them alone. Do not leave them alone. because that's when I went on an adventure. I remember I was living on the coast and I slept I didn't sleep. I lied down on a riverbank during a lightning storm because I thought God was going to come into me and like I don't know what he was going to do, but it's never leave somebody alone. Like I said, like look what happened with this arrest. I was alone and I got arrested. Never leave somebody alone.
And thank you for that. And as we got up into the later years where your daughter could like communicate back to you, I know you said, well, mommy's having a manic episode again.
Yeah.
But before that, I'm curious about the timeline before she had language and recognized that that's what was happening. What was
Mhm.
your relationship like with her when she could start communicating?
Oh, we've always had a good relationship. I mean, it never affected her until this last episode. Oh, when the second one happened, I pulled her out of the house because I thought that my second husband was a mass shooter. I don't know where that came from, but I remember pulling her out in the middle of the night and him saying he was like, come here, your mom's not good," and she stuck by my side. She stuck by my side, so she knew, but she always had my back,
How old
and
is
it
she?
wasn't at that time 10. And then so it didn't affect her till she got older and started realizing what was happening. And if I wasn't right, she would call her dad to come pick her up.
Boundaries. Wow. Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
she's very wise, very, very wise.
Okay. I'm curious about your childhood, and then we can transition to your youngest daughter and your
Hmm.
relationship.
Hmm.
Um, what was your childhood like? And what was your relationship with your mom?
Me and my mom were really close. I was an only child for a long time. And it was the 90s, rollerblading, she was just so much fun. She was so much fun. And then she got married when I was older and I became a sibling to four other ones. And my
And then
life just four other ones. Yeah.
for other ones, what?
Kids.
Oh,
I became the oldest of four other kids.
all right, all right, all right. But
So
like, dad had children, or mom started the.
no, my parents got divorced when I was an infant.
Okay.
So my dad never really wasn't, that's where I think also like the hypersexuality comes from, just all these factors. My dad wasn't around, he was an addict, so he was going in and out of treatment. And
Mhm.
he didn't start showing up till I had my oldest. So I never had a dad, per se. And my grandparents raised me too, that was very close. And then, one of these men that she was with happened to, abuse me. So that's where it comes from, thinking that somebody else is going to hurt my daughters because
Yeah.
that's what happened to me.
Does being medicated, like, what does
Mhm.
that do to you? What does that feel like?
Sometimes I wish it would give me a high, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I guess I feel just normal. If that's how normal people feel, then I just feel normal.
I'm sorry. That is more. It's terrible.
You
It's
would think you
more.
get some gratification from it, but no.
Yeah. Well, I guess like if it keeps you out of trouble, whatever
Right,
trouble
right,
is
right,
in that
right.
context, and ah, like I imagine that it's. I don't know if you have the thoughts of what your manic life was like, but do you miss it? Do you miss being undiagnosed?
I do, just because of the stigma that comes with another stigma, and all these people always worrying about me, tell me what to do, and it's always back in my head, well, if something happens again, they're going to use my mental health as, that I need to be committed or something. Like it's like walking on eggshells. It really is.
Has it gotten better or easier for you over time? Or do you feel like it's getting stronger within you? Like, does it feel like it's living in you? Are you sharing your mind? What is it?
I feel it's scary because they say as you get older, it gets more intense, the episodes when they do happen.
That would make sense.
Yeah, but I also feel like, I have these people who have been around it for such a long time that they're good support. And I feel too, it's just being honest. It really is. Like if I'm not having a good day, I'm gonna tell somebody, hey, this is what's going on with me. Like I need help. So I think, if it does happen again, which, I hope it doesn't, because also this last episode of who I was with dating at the time convinced me to get off of my medication. So I wasn't medicated. So now I know, like,
It's like the
yeah,
worst thing, right?
yeah, yeah. So now I know for sure, like, I need to be medicated. I've accepted it. I used to go against it. Maybe I don't have bipolar. Maybe it was just this. Maybe it was just that. But this last time I realized I do have it and I need to be medicated.
I'm glad we're not doing video because I've been making faces at like things that you said that would really give away what some of my thoughts are about this. And I gotta tell you, this is a conversation that I don't think I would have been equipped to have when we originally scheduled our podcast episode. So again, thank you for your patience and bearing with me to be able to be at a point where I can really receive this and be present with it because I'm experiencing, like I think about my own nervous system, like there's some healing happening from just getting the empathy and understanding of what your experiences have been and how that translates because I have a cousin as well. Like I'm not diagnosing people. Like I have an aunt who is clinically diagnosed.
Mhm.
And the best thing for her daughter was to get away from it. She is very intelligent. She watches anime too, so shout out to her. And she's graduated college and is on the track of being very successful. And speaking of like stigma as, just these stereotypes, I had beliefs about my aunt. I had beliefs about my cousin's dad as well. That now, as an adult and having more understanding of mental health and what people might be going through, and the language of not only is there, you have the clinical diagnoses of these things,
Mhm.
but you also have like people who maybe display these traits or behaviors that aren't diagnosed. And we can't like look at them and go, oh, it's this and make an excuse for it, but we can be a little bit more open-minded to what
Right.
these are and meet them with presence and meet them with curiosity and ask like, hey, I noticed that you do this. Like, does it feel like this? Like now I have information to pull from to be able to go, okay, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, flaps its wings like a duck. Maybe it's not a duck. Oh, on the water like a duck. Oh, that's a duck. All right.
Mhm.
Can we go and get like a duck evaluation? I think that
Right.
you might be a duck, right? Like, but
Yeah.
more covert in the sense of, hey, let's go for a ride. Yeah, we're gonna go to this place. I
Yeah.
guess like not to say that there's any end all be all right way to do it, but just how you're talking about your daughter and how wise she is, like it brings flashbacks there. And as you talked about some of the like sexual trauma and experiences that you
Mhm.
had, like I think about past relationships where I'm like, wow, some of this does like make sense. And again, not delivering a diagnosis, but it's expanding my perspective to be able to close some long-standing loops about what may have been going on in my relationship. And the last thing that I'll share before just passing it over is I remember being in a relationship with someone. This was long enough ago for me to have had, I can say this and nobody will know who it is. But I remember one day I had a partner who I just asked because I saw a medication that I didn't recognize. And she asked something of me. We talked about it. It was handled. And then, like, she left the room not long, came back and, like, brought it to my attention again. And I was like, yo, we just talked about that. I was like, are you bipolar? And I just like asked that question and she made this face like a fucking deer in the headlights, not like, no, this motherfucker just didn't, like you would expect from
Yeah.
someone who's like, oh, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? I didn't get that
Right.
response. What response I got was just the deer in the headlights that to me felt like a, oh my God, how'd he find out? As if it
Right.
was being hidden. And so that led to very confusing behaviors in the relationship. She threw my shit outside one day. We broke up, we weren't together. And I'm thinking, like, well, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I doing wrong? Because we talked about like we're not together and the
Right.
thing like the fidelity or the cheating, right? So
Mhm.
we communicated that we weren't together. We were roommates now. She went out of town and told me she was going out of town to see a guy. She left and I was just like chilling, but then I ended up going and having, saw somebody and she fucking detective work, like put it together that something happened. And when we got back in town, we both were back. Like, I don't think she knew that I went anywhere, but it was like, well, it's none of your business really. So we ended
Right.
up going and hanging out. We had food. We came back, and she sat in my car. She was like, "Did you have somebody in your car seat on this side of your car?" I was like, "Yeah." I didn't think anything of it. We get home. I let her out first. She goes in, and that's when she just throws my shit. She threw my Xbox. She fucking broke glass in the sink. And I got to the door. I was like, "Hey, I live here too. I don't want to have to call the cops to let me in my apartment." And so she opened the door and she was leaving. She's like, "Don't you fucking touch me." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And come to find out, like, I mean, I don't know if she has a diagnosis, but a
Yeah.
lot of the behaviors and the inconsistencies and the like, sometimes hypersexuality, like
Hmm.
this shit is mind blowing to
Hmm. It's very interesting too.
because I asked too, like I asked my dad because everyone, especially in the black community, I can't tell. Are you what is your ethnicity?
Nobody can ever tell with me. I'm Mexican American.
Oh, all right. I was thinking Hispanic, but I didn't want to,
Yeah.
make the assumption.
Yeah.
I know that in the black community, right, like when I was growing up, we just call people special needs or they were crazy or the
Hmm.
autism,
Hmm.
right? And so everything was just kind of labeled as, oh, grandma just crazy. She tripping,
Right.
right?
Right.
And coming into language, I'm like, yo, these people weren't fucking tripping. Like, I got questions. I asked my dad one time, I was like, hey, am like I know you don't seem like you have any mental health thing, but like, did it skip a generation because your sister has the diagnosis? Am I susceptible to it? Is somebody else gonna get it?
Right.
Me and my dad, we had a very serious, like, and good conversation about
Mhm.
my grandmother's mental health. And he talked about a lot of the traumatic experiences that she had. And I can't necessarily say that you said unrelated trauma, uh,
Mhm.
being something that maybe, did you call this a trigger or am I making that up?
No, I don't know if I did, but it definitely is a trigger.
Oh, did we talk about that or no?
No, we didn't talk about triggers. No.
Oh, okay. So can you share the unrelated trauma trigger?
I think you said related, not unrelated. Or what do you mean?
I thought you said unrelated trauma that contributed to your episode.
No, it was related from the trauma,
Okay.
untreated trauma.
Oh, I thought you said unrelated. All right, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so just sharing that, like, to give you perspective in case you're like, why is he making all these faces? I'm just like, in my mind, a lot of dots are connecting, not necessarily solidifying and closing out chapters of my life, but closing open loops of possibility. So again,
Right.
I thank you for your transparency here. Is there anything that you want to say speaking to your own childhood and relationship with your family before we go into how things are or were for your second time around giving birth and raising a child now with this diagnosis?
Um, I just think like the same way in my culture, it's either you get over it, depression, whatever it is, or you give it to God. And I think from this, I broke those messed up ways of thinking because now my family is starting to learn about mental illness. They're starting to see what they could do. They're believing in medicine. Before all this happened, my family was not like that.
Sorry that it had to happen through you. Damn.
Right.
Uh,
Everything happens for a reason. So,
Yeah. I always say life isn't about what happens to you, but it's about what happens through you. So if this experience has been able to heal some generational trauma and experiences, then yay. And
yeah.
hopefully, well, you see it in your daughter. Like you've done a great job with
Oh, thank
how
you.
you describe your 17-year-old, and I assume that like you're doing or have been able to do a better job the second time around.
Yeah. Um, so the second pregnancy was amazing. Um, I meal prepped every day. I was a high risk pregnancy since the first one was an emergency C-section. So I got to go to all these doctor's appointments. The birth was nice when I had her, but this is when I had her, I was a single mom. Her dad was overseas. So he was there for the birth, and then 3 days later, he had to go back to where he lived. So I had my oldest and I had her. I lived at home with my mom for the first year, and everything was fine. Everything was fine. She was my baby. She's my spoiled one. And then me and her dad eventually got married. We moved to another coast, and I homeschooled her, put her in different activities. Like it was a really good childhood for her. And then the episode happened because she's little. She was little when it happened.
2023, right?
Right. 2020, well, the first one at 2020, but nothing really happened traumatic with her. She was on the side of the road with my oldest when they were trying to call her back into the house, but she doesn't remember that. But the one in 20, no, not 2020. Yeah, 2023, she was present for. And she must have blocked it out because she doesn't remember. She doesn't talk about it, doesn't remember it. Just total trauma. And I hope it doesn't come up one day, in her what is it? Suppressed memories, like. But with her, I pulled her out of I always plan these kids out of something. I pulled her out of a car because here's the kicker. The day after I got married to my third husband, I had an episode. And we were driving, we got married out of town and we're driving back to my home. And I thought that he was driving us off into heaven. So I got scared. I didn't want to die. And I pulled my daughter out of the car and started
Were you able to
walking.
say this? Were you able to say, "Hey, are you driving us to heaven?" For him to be like,
Mm-mm,
"No, we're actually going to Texas, or we're."
mm-mm. And I remember because you hallucinate too during the episodes. So
Oh,
I remember looking at his phone and the GPS looking all weird. And it's like, where is he taking us? Like, where are we going? So because of that episode, that's how I lost my kids.
okay. And this is the day after the marriage. You're still married to this person, right? All right. Now, I want to ask this question. I don't know if this is like a shitty question, but for you to have had an episode the day after getting married, you had an episode in 2020,
Mhm.
pandemic, like I think everybody had some type of episode.
Right.
And then 2013 as well. Like, would you say that these episodes maybe, like, what is there to learn from the triggering of an episode? Is it that, like, a course correction? Is it that we're doing something that maybe there's a redirection
Hmm.
or something we ain't got no business doing? Like, what,
Exactly.
can you make any connection there?
Yeah, I definitely have learned that I need to be on the straight and narrow because what happens is with bipolar stress is a huge factor. So if you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, that's going to cause you stress, right? Naturally. So as long as I do what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not living a double life, then I'm okay.
Dang. I've I found the work of Napoleon Hill, his book Outwitting the Devil, where he has an interview with the devil. And the devil speaks to this concept of drifting, where you are unconsciously engaging in behaviors that have no purpose, that have no intentionality behind them. And the quote cure is essentially, I say community because typically community has a purpose in it and an intention, but each individual, if we were to have some sense of definiteness of purpose, is the phrase that he used, then you become immune to the drift of the devil. There's a saying, idle mind is the devil's playground, and
Hmm.
that's like what it was speaking to. And so when I think about religion and how you had like the religious episodes and the consequences of those things, it kind of feels like maybe there was like how you just said, when I'm on the straight and narrow, when I'm doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing, I'm good. And more scientifically, less religion. Dr. Maxwell Maltz has this book called Psychocybernetics. And one of the things an analogy that was very well put is that human beings are brains, they are goal striving mechanisms. And it's kind of like sitting on a bicycle, where your feet are on the pedals, but you're not pedaling forward towards anything. And what happens is you just fall over. But as long as you're pedaling towards something, then
Hmm.
your being upright is it's used in the direction that it's used. And if you don't use it, you lose it, and you lose it to that drift and that stagnance. And I would say that that is probably one of the closest metaphors to what I've experienced in being in that depressive state or having experienced depression. And it sounds very similar to what you're describing with bipolar.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we were able to have this like mental health conversation.
Hmm.
Now, closing out or transitioning, is there anything else that you want to touch on as it relates to bipolar, mental health, trauma?
Let me see. No,
Let me,
I think I've
let me,
I think I've said
let
a
me
lot.
yeah, let me pull up the damn. All right, so who didn't disclose and gave it to me? So can we talk about the herpes, I guess, for a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So what's this self stigma that you talked about?
I just like I said, like I have a friend that says, and my mom's big on it, that like I need to stop. How's it? How do they say it? Speak things into action, or when you say something, it happens. I don't know. For the longest time, I had a fear of herpes. I don't know why. I just was scared of it. And a friend of ours had it, and well, she wasn't a friend anymore, but we heard about her having it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm surprised I haven't had it. And boom, I actually got. Oh, let me tell you how I found out I had it. Let me show you when I first started showing symptoms. It was during my episode, my last one in 2023. I was in the hospital, and I was hearing voices, and something told me to look at my vagina, and I did, and I saw something, but I didn't know what it was. I'm like, there's no way I'm tripping. Like I must be tripping. Like, I knew it was happening, but I didn't know. And I remember I was go to the bathroom, and it would hurt so bad, and I would get ice chips, and I would pee with it. But none of the doctors or anybody like cared to ask me what I was doing, so I didn't say anything. So a year goes by, I had another outbreak, and that's when I went to the doctor to go get tested for that, and that's when I found out I had cancer. So it was all two for one.
So,
But
yeah.
the stigma that comes with it, I just don't want it. Like, I don't want to affect somebody on that level that I got affected without having a choice, because I don't know who gave it to me, and they never told me that they had it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you get these diagnoses. Do you find that that the conversations were different between like talking about the herpes and the HPV at all? Like when they talk to you?
You know what? I could say this doctor, he was amazing with the herpes. He was like, we're gonna get this treated, like we're gonna make sure that the outbreaks aren't that like I felt when I first had HPV with my first child, that doctor wasn't empathetic. She was like, "Oh, you seem upset." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but these doctors have been so non-judgmental." And I think it might also be a different state too. New York is a lot more open to these things, and I came from a conservative state, so that is a difference. But like they've been amazing. Like my treatment with doctors have been so not judgmental at all.
Um, so can I ask you about the other thing that you wrote in here about like being open with your daughter about
Hmm. Hmm.
talking about sex? Like what do you mean by being open with your daughter and talking about sex?
Um, like I said, I have a spiritual background. So I explained to her that, like, the Bible isn't like a book of rules. It's a book of rules, but they're rules for a reason. Just like I give her rules, like don't stay up too late. If you're gonna go out and you happen to drink, let me know so I could pick you up. Never get in a car with somebody drinking, like those kind of things. Like they're to protect you. So when it comes to sex, they recommend to only have sex when you're married. And I tell her the reason, like, why it's probably there is that you don't have these problems like cancer that came from an STD, or you have to take a pill twice a day so that you don't have an outbreak. So, I have disclosed to her that I do have herpes.
A lot of people don't do that. And I guess like there's a fear of their child looking down on them, but I imagine that it's also an opportunity to have them trust you more in what you're saying.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's been what your experience has been.
Yes, yes.
Good. Okay. We are way over time.
I
I
know.
appreciate that you've been willing to like go as deep into this conversation. I didn't expect that. So thank you. It's been
You're
very
welcome.
interesting. And
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure that this is going to be something that is also healing for other people as well. So I'll close us out. Is there anything that you want to leave people with or anyone who might be in a similar situation as you before I close out and talk to you for
I
a little
just
bit?
think I think it's just important to, be honest and to try to find that support that you can trust, and to have if you are experiencing, maybe bipolar symptoms, whether it be one or two or any mental health crisis, to make sure you have a grounding foundation of people that you could support. And if you think you might have something like this, go to the library, get some books, read about it. If you're not ready to go, get evaluated.
Like that you say, go to the library and read some books, because I think a lot of people will just Google. And what I'm seeing is that the AI and Googling things is really like
Hmm.
the narratives are different depending on who you are and based on your search history. So like we
Right.
just talked about sex and like the bipolar symptoms of hypersexuality, right? And I wonder for someone who maybe is in a more conservative space, if sex even comes up or if it comes up like more aggressively to discourage it. So yeah, I'm glad that you said books. Like I think that we really need to get back.
Yeah.
Which speaking of books, I want to mention that I am in a chapter of the fundamental concepts and critical developments in sex education, intersectional and trauma-informed approaches book alongside some of your favorite sex educators if you are listening to this. So you can check that out if you would like. But yeah, I just felt like that was a good opportunity for a shameless plug. All right, now that concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. Please like, rate, review, share, subscribe to the podcast. You can join us for a support group. The men's group is the second Monday of every month at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and this is virtual. And then the general herpes support group is also virtual, and it's the first Monday of every month at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Now, I will add more of these. So I think that maybe every other week is sustainable, with the exception of some weeks where I have to do things on Monday evenings, but I want Monday evenings to be for y'all. Now, the first 2 weeks are going to be free. I have to do something where donations are encouraged so that we can continue to operate and function in a way that is going to be self-sustaining. So if you need more than that free once a month social support group for yourself, I encourage you to consider becoming a member or becoming a regular donor so that you get access to the other support groups as well with more personalized support. It can look like just asking these questions, very similar to what podcast episodes look like, or just how support calls work as well, but in a community and group setting where we can share and exchange experiences, guidance, and perspectives. All right. Yeah, so that's it. That concludes this episode. And till next time, y'all stay present. I am going to stop the recording